Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're getting ready for the SSC MTS English exam, then you have absolutely come to the right place. Today, we're going to break down the February 5th paper to give you the real inside scoop on what to expect and, more importantly, how to get ready for it. So, the big question, right? What was actually on the paper? Let's dive in. We're going to look at the patterns that keep showing up, the topics that are super hot right now, and, yeah, any curveballs they decided to throw in. This way, you'll know exactly what to focus on.
We have dug through all the expert reviews and pulled out the absolute must-know info. Seriously, by the time we're done here, you're going to have a super clear, focused game plan to go tackle that English section with a whole lot more confidence.
All right, let's get things started with vocabulary. Now, this section was a real grab bag. They tested everything from idioms and antonyms to some pretty specific one-word substitutions, and even a few words that are just tricky to spell.
Okay, so one of the key idioms that popped up was cast the first stone. You know, this might be a new one for some of you. It basically means to be the very first person to point a finger and blame someone, especially when maybe no one else wants to. And here's where it gets interesting. Cast the first stone is part of a whole family of idioms all about blaming people. So if you see that one, you should also be ready for things like pass the buck, shifting the blame, or cast aspersions, and even throw mud at. They're all kind of playing in the same sandbox. The exam really, and I mean really, went in on antonyms. Brisk was a perfect example. On the one hand, you've got all its fast friends, like swift and rapid. But what they really wanted to know is if you knew its total opposites on the other side. Words like lethargic, lazy, and indolent. You've got to know both sides of the coin.
And that wasn't all. The antonym questions really covered a lot of ground. I mean, from simple stuff like borrow versus lend to bigger ideas like benevolent versus malevolent. It just goes to show they want you to have a really broad vocabulary.
They also hit us with synonyms, asking for a word that means garrulous, which is just a fancy way of saying talkative. But here's the pro tip, okay? Anytime you see a synonym question, you can bet its antonyms are right around the corner for the next exam. So get to know words like reticent, taciturn, and laconic, which all mean quiet. Okay, moving on to one-word substitutions. A huge pattern jumped out here. A major focus on systems of government, specifically words that end in crocracy. That little ending comes from a Greek word that means rule by. And this slide pretty much lays out your study guide. The exam specifically asked about aristocracy and monarchy. That's a massive clue, right? It means you need to know the whole family. Be ready for a plutocracy, that's ruled by the rich, or oligarchy, which is ruled by a small, powerful group. Spelling was also on the menu, and they picked some words that are just designed to trip you up. So pay really close attention to these four: germane, irascible, imbroglio, and hegemony. A little advice from me: actually write them out by hand a few times. It sounds simple, but trust me, it makes a huge difference. Okay, so we've talked about words. Now let's talk about how you put those words together. When we look at the grammar section, it turns out a couple of topics were way more important than all the others. Take a look at this number, 3 to 4. What does that mean? Well, that's how many questions came from just one grammar topic, and that topic was prepositions. This is exactly why getting your prepositions down is probably one of the smartest things you can do right now. It's such a high-yield topic. They were asking about the correct prepositions to use with common words, like knowing when to say you agree with someone versus agreeing to a plan. It's those little details that count. A real classic grammar trap also showed up: the whole since versus for confusion. It's a simple rule, but man, it gets so many people. Just remember this: since is for a starting point in time, like since 9 a.m. For is all about a period of time, a duration, like for 3 years. Now here's where you've got to stay on your toes. In the first few shifts, 0 questions on active and passive voice. Nothing. But then, bam! The third shift suddenly had 3 of them. This is the perfect reminder that you can never completely ignore a topic. They can and they will bring things back when you least expect it. So we've gone from words to grammar rules. Now let's zoom out to the big picture, understanding whole chunks of text. This brings us to reading comprehension and sentence rearrangement.
And hey, a really quick but super important note on how you practice. Make sure you are working on the right thing. The exam had reading comprehension passages, not cloze tests. So make sure you're focusing your practice time on RC.
The reading comprehension part was apparently moderately difficult, so, totally manageable.
But a lot of students said the sentence rearrangement questions, the PQRS ones, were kind of tricky. They use the S1/S6 pattern, which means they give you the first and last sentence, and you have to sort out the middle. And for RC, that pro tip right there is gold. Read the questions first before the passage. It just helps you hunt for the answers.
So, we've torn apart the vocabulary, grammar, and comprehension sections. What does all this mean for you, right now? Let's boil it all down into a clear, simple, last-minute action plan.
Here it is. This is your final focus list. If you're short on time, this is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Get those preposition rules down cold. Review all those crassy words. Practice RC by reading the questions first, and get ready for some tough sentence rearrangements. Oh, and don't get caught off guard. Give active/passive voice some love, and review those tricky spellings.
So there you have it. You know what's coming, you know the tricky spots, and you know where they might try to surprise you. You've got a roadmap now. The only question left is, where are you going to start? Good luck with your prep. You've got